Before we start, I wanted to kind of note that we're in Project X-ITE's co-working space here in Marjorie Reed,
Very cool.
which is available to all students. We keep the door open during business hours of the day, so you guys are always free to come in here and work. We've got sticky notes, expo markers, whiteboards galore, so feel free to always come in here, and that's pretty much it.
It doesn't usually look like this.
Yeah, it normally has some tables and it's more conducive to working. So you guys should feel free to come in here anytime you like. So I guess just to get us started, can you give us like a brief background? And then I couldn't resist asking this question. After your background, what was the catalyst for Catalyst HCI?
Great question. How is everybody this morning?
Good.
Yeah?
Monday.
Good. Excellent. Well, thanks for getting together on this Monday morning. Beautiful day today in Denver. How many people are from outside of Denver who came here to study or be a part of the community? Raise your hands. That's awesome. Good stuff. Great place to live, work, and play for sure. My background, we're going to really compress it, give you the cliff notes. After playing collegiate ball a little bit in the NFL, hung up the cleats, got into the medical device industry and healthcare at large back in the early 2000s. Spent the first 10 years in the device industry, more specifically everything related to the spine world. In 2011, the Affordable Care Act came online. My then co-founder and I, a fellow former college athlete as well, he was a baseball pitcher at Princeton. We worked in the device industry for a number of years. And we said, well, wait a minute, with the Affordable Care Act coming online, we need a mandate lowering spend, increasing outcomes. And so we said, why can't we go and disrupt the buy and sell of implants? It's an industry very fraught with waste, and so we essentially built the Amazon, specifically engineered for procurement managers in surgery centers to directly connect with device companies, to remove the middle person or a medical device sales rep when he or she wasn't offering any clinical value to the physician, to the hospital, most importantly to the patient. As you can imagine, we really pissed off people like Medtronic and Johnson & Johnson and Stryker, so we were doing our job as a startup. In late 2013, that startup was taken out by a private equity group in California. Why is that all important? During that entire time here in Denver building that, I was one of the very first companies in Galvanize. Who sort of Galvanize, one of the co-working spaces here? I was one of the very first ones that entered that space in early 2012 and found great value in that kind of environment, and then also became a very passionate and a very involved member of a group here called Prime Health. Who's heard of Prime Health? Excellent. If you want to find out more, go to primehealthco.com. Prime Health was started at the beginning of 2012, about the same time I'm getting that startup off the ground. And really because it was a gentleman out of the Economic Development Office that started hearing folks like Kaiser, Anthem, Aetna, CHI, entrepreneurs, engineers, venture capitalists, students, etc., start talking about this nascent idea called digital health. So they started bringing all of these thought leaders together with Prime Health on a consistent basis. I was getting involved, found great value in that kind of meetup. So think of the de facto association for the digital health community. 2014 hits, January of 14, our seminal moment for how we became now a top-ranked health tech innovation cluster in the nation. Let me explain what happened. I just get done selling my startup in December of 13. Take the family to Mexico for the first couple weeks of January of 14 to reacquaint myself with my family. Anybody knows who working in startup land, you sometimes don't see your family that much. And when I came back the last week, and this is the moment for Catalyst, when I came back end of January of 14, the seminal moment occurred. Here's what happened. The founder of Prime Health, Jake Rashavi, gives me a call. He says, Mike, we know you just exited. We want you to come on the board of Prime Health, extract it out of the Denver South Economic Development Office, and stand it up on its own as a nonprofit to serve all of Colorado, not just South Denver. I said, what do you want to do that for, Jake? He said, Mike, did you see the report? I said, no, I've been in Margaritaville for the past 3 weeks on the beach. I'm not reading any reports. What's going on? Mike, we as a city and we as a state, we're just ranked a top 10 digital health cluster in the nation by Rock Health. So that's interesting. I said, Mike, we were ranked number 6. And really, that report failed to really give a holistic view of what's happening here. They really based the report off of 4 companies: HealthGrades, iTriage, WellTalk, and TriZetto. All national brands, incredible leaders in our community. But we knew as community leaders here that there was a hell of a lot more happening. And we were positioned at number 6 specifically in the country at that time, again, January of 14. And Jake said, yeah, but imagine if we coalesced or catalyzed everybody, what could we really achieve? And I said, you want me involved, huh? He said, yeah. I said, you know, as an all Pac-10 football player at Stanford, I played in the NFL. Someone like me, what do you think is pretty inherent in someone like me? I'm very, very competitive. And I said, I ain't satisfied with number 6. I said, if you want me involved on this board, and if you want me involved in taking Prime Health across the state, we're going to go after building the top health tech innovation cluster right here in Denver, Colorado, hell or high water by 2020. Mike, are you nuts? You want to go and compete with the Bostons, the San Franciscos, New Yorks, the Chicagos of the world? You're damn right I do. I was the kid raised on the other side of the tracks by an asphalt layer and a janitor. No one in my family went to college. You don't tell a kid like me what he can and can't do, right? End up earning a scholarship to play football at Stanford. So again, I look at things that are impossible and say, let's get her done, right? So he's, Jake, the founder of Prime, he's like, man, that seems pretty audacious, but let's take it out to the community. So we're going around Boulder, Fort Collins, the Springs, into the mountains, Grand Junction, down south, really telling the story of this health tech innovation boom. And then the aha moment happened. And I said, how are we going to compete on a national level? How are we going to differentiate Denver from the San Franciscos, the Bostons, New Yorks, and Chicagos? And I started thinking about what the uniqueness is of our state here. I have a master's in sociology, so I geek out on the study of people. And I noticed one thing that's very hard to replicate here in Denver. How many of you recognize the deep, deep sense of collaboration in our state? Yeah, it's unrivaled in this country. It really, truly is. And I said, that is going to be the building block for what I want to create. Remember what I said that I was in Galvanize? And as we all know, Galvanize or WeWork, they really cater to one cohort, the startup. And while those are great environments, and I, again, found great value of being in Galvanize, so we're not going to change healthcare off the backs of startups alone. It's not going to happen. We have to have everybody in the same boat, from Fortune 100 all the way down to a woman with an ID on a napkin and everything in between. And I said, that sounds like a campus. Because I know when we create a built environment that we can, that you allow for the opportunity for collisions to happen, that's when innovation occurs. Go and study Tony Zay down in Las Vegas, the founder of Zappos. He talks about that. I actually have one of his quotes in one of my marketing materials for Catalyst, that when you create a built environment for innovators, that's when innovation occurs. And so I said, well, this sounds like a campus. This isn't just a co-working space, and I'm not a real estate guy. I'm a healthcare geek. But I am an entrepreneur, and I know how to go and build teams that are bigger than yourself, right? So I went and hunted down a group here called Coble and Company, a real estate development firm that's been in our city and in our state for 65 years, long-term holders of real estate. And I gave them this vision for a healthcare innovation campus, again, bringing the biggest of the big into the same environment as the smallest of the small. They love the idea. So they signed on as the developer. Then the last piece was land. We need dirt to build this on. And I wanted to be Wayne Gretzky, be where the puck's going to be, not where it's at. I said, this has to be built in River North. How many have been to River North where the source is? Brighton Boulevard looks like a war zone over there right now. Yeah, well, it's intentional because that district in about 18 months is going to be unbelievable. And I said, we need to be right in the heart of that, and more specifically, we need to be right by that train stop at 38th and Blake. Why? Because we need innovators from around the world to fly in, get on that train, take a train right to the campus, walk out of it. There's an entire campus for healthcare geeks, right? And so luckily, Coble and Company had a relationship with a group called the Burgess family that owns land in the Rhino district. They started amassing dirt in that district since 1968. Smartest people in the room. They transferred about a city block of dirt at 35th and Brighton. If any of you know where Great Divides Brewery is on Brighton Boulevard, I'm right next door to that. Great Divides our wellness component. And so we put together the team in August of 15. We've been off to the races ever since. We broke ground in October of 16, and now there's a beam being installed, one beam every 20 minutes right now. This is a 200,000 square foot, $65 million campus doing exactly what I just described, bringing the biggest of the big in the same environment as the smallest of the small. And I dare say I don't think that there's anything like it in this country. And it's right here in Denver. And we're now we are now ranked a top 5 cluster, specifically number 4. Wow. And we're not done yet. We're just getting going. So there's Catalyst.
That's an amazing story, Mike.
Yeah.
Let's
I
go
was
for
just
it.
curious always when I think of an incubator space, like if you guys work out the financials of like for startups that come to the innovative space, how do you guys work out like their agreement with you? Like what's your part?
Great question. So first of all, it's not an incubator space because I have 4 different incubators committed. It's not an accelerator. I have 3 different accelerators. And it's not a co-working space. That's just the 4th floor of 7. As you heard Nina say, this is an industry integrator, bringing all aspects of healthcare under the same roof at the point of innovation to reimagine this industry together. If you go to catalysthealthtech.com/community, you'll see the definition of the industry integrator with the image of the building of exactly what I'm talking about. But more specific to your question, I will never take equity from a startup to be housed in a building. I absolutely don't believe in that. I think it destroys a startup's cap table when you're giving up equity to have it on an office, so we won't do that. The best way I explain what our team is up to is the following. It's our job to build the best vehicle we can, the building, get the hell out of the way once it's done, and throw the keys to folks like you. So we want, like Innosphere, one of our top incubators, they'll be working with the startups, right? And so it's not necessarily up to me in regards to how the startups work with the incubators. It's the incubators inside that are working with the startups. I'm just providing the facility. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That's not up to me. I'm just building the house. So
The incubators are paying the rent.
absolutely,
Okay.
as are the startups. Absolutely.
Great. Well, thanks for that background. And if anybody has any more questions, like I said, feel free to just kind of throw yourselves out there. But seeing all that you just explained, it's amazing. But students are often intimidated by all that's going on out in the world outside of this campus. Well, what can students do to support innovation in healthcare and in the ecosystem that you're building?
Well, I can tell you right now, and I'm not going to be shy about it. I'm going after your leadership at the University of Denver right now. Why? I want an asset at Catalyst for all DU faculty, administrative staff, students. It doesn't matter. You need to be in that campus with us. Why? Guess who are some of the tenants over there? Hitachi, global number 79 on the Global 500. Officing a 6,000 square foot office on the 3rd floor, 1 floor removed from our co-working space of 50 plus startups. Medical Group Management Association, representing over 430,000 physicians around the nation, 36,000 administrators, giving an open invite to all of those physicians to come into Denver and work with our students, work with our startups. I am pushing your leadership here at DU very hard. We need to have you guys in the building. Why? You are the lifeblood of the success of this ecosystem moving forward. This isn't a 1 or 2 year play. This isn't a 3 to 5 year play. This is a 20 to 30 to 40 year play for our city and our state. It's going to take a long time to reimagine healthcare. And in regards to your question for students, this is the lifeblood of how we're going to reimagine this industry. These companies like the Hitachis, all the way down to, you're an intern for ListenMD, one of our startups, from a Hitachi that has 350,000 employees to a startup that has 3. All of those organizations are looking for the next, generation of leadership to continue to move the ball forward. So don't be shy. Come in the environment, and come and kick ass together with us. We need the talent pool in order to continue to push this forward.
Great. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to talk about? Nate?
An area that I've become increasingly interested in, especially lately for reasons that will be obvious, is healthcare policy, which of course is right now facing some pretty serious changes.
You don't say.
What do you think that the role of Catalyst is going to be in terms of formulating and, let's say, pushing effective healthcare policy, which can be very hard to do given the polarization of our politics and this perception that it might be a Democrat plan or a Republican plan?
Absolutely. So, a couple things. Again, remember, as I mentioned just a little bit ago, I'm building the vehicle for everybody to drive those types of initiatives and agendas. So, for instance, let's go back to Medical Group Management Association. And full disclosure, I'm a board member of that organization. We have a guy by the name of Anders in Washington, D.C. Literally, looking out his window is the White House. And he's on Capitol Hill every single day, making sure that our community back here is informed on policy. Colorado Bioscience Association, April Giles, the CEO, a dear friend, they work a lot on policy and regulation, right? They'll be in the building. There's a couple other private firms as well that will be in there working with the fellow tenants in the building to make sure that, again, we're going where the puck is going to be for policy, not where it's currently at. So, again, it's a community effort inside the campus to help push those types of initiatives forward, because it's very important. policy and regulation in this industry, it's all over the place. And so we need to make sure that our innovators are properly educated, and we need to make sure that even the established companies are seeing where policy and regulation is going. So a lot of the tenants in the building will be pushing those agendas forward.
Great. Does anybody else have any questions they'd like to throw in there?
I'm Steven from Shanghai. I'm a new visitor here.
Oh, great, welcome.
It's my second time in this room.
Oh, great.
I want to set up a platform or club. I want to connect the local and global and to share the community resources. Maybe we can, we are from different families and maybe we can enjoy the same friendship. I need your some advice to make it come true.
Yeah, so I think we should continue that conversation later. And so something that's going to be a great resource to you is we have X-ITE Solutions Hours, which are something where we keep this room open and we bring in our faculty innovation fellows.
That's a good idea.
Myself, our student advisory board, who are all trained on the resources that are available to entrepreneurs and just students on this campus. And so we have those hours 3 times a week for 2 hours per day. And I welcome you to come in and talk to us about that, and we can connect you with the appropriate people according to how that's going to work out. So thank you for that input.
Yeah. Couple things I didn't mention at the front end of this, just so you guys understand the magnitude of this health tech innovation cluster here. It's amazing. We do a cluster analysis every year of this cluster through Prime Health. And as of last report from 2016, we have now identified and verified over 140 digital health and health tech companies in this state. And the pipeline's not slowing down. Right now, you guys have probably heard, and I work with our mayor's office and our chief economist, we get these updates quite regularly. Right now we have about 10,000 people a month moving into the greater Denver area. 75% of that is 35 and younger. We're now the second most educated state in the nation. This place is booming, and it's not slowing down. These are the types of folks that we need to come in here to build those new technologies and innovations for healthcare. The word is out across the country. I just got done giving a keynote in front of the American Medical Association, was down at the American Osteopathic Association. I'm going around the country speaking about our community. The word is out. People are like, what the hell is going on in Denver, and how can we participate? Because what people are so fascinated by, not just Catalyst, but the community at large, is how are we knocking down those silos? How are we getting competing health systems to work with each other? How are we getting academic institutions like a DU and a Regis and a CU to play ball with each other, right? That is, our secret sauce, and people across the country are now recognizing it. And our phone is ringing off the hook, actually not from just this country. I just got off a Skype call with a startup in Tel Aviv that is now looking to come here, right? These are the new realities of our city. It's very exciting.
Wow. So you're building this vehicle, this industry integrator, and you've talked a lot, or at least I've read a lot of materials on the idea of serendipitous collisions.
Yep.
Within that integrator. And I was wondering if you could touch on that for our students, and maybe go into the topic of like what is the most important part of building this community or the ecosystem.
Yeah, so for instance, and if you guys go to the website at catalysthealthtech.com, you'll see some of the stuff I'm about to describe. For instance, we have a 250-person seated auditorium on campus, right? So think of pitch competitions, Denver Startup Week, maybe for instance, the American Diabetes Association opening up their first ever innovation lab, not in Washington, D.C. in their headquarters, not in Silicon Valley, right here in our community. They believe that tech and innovation could one day help eradicate diabetes, right? Through big data, predictive analytics, things like that. But imagine the ADA giving a talk on a Thursday night in the auditorium. Powerful stuff, right? But again, we need the students inside there. And so we really thought through every square foot of this campus. We've actually intentionally hid the elevators. We have a huge open atrium staircase that goes through the entire building because we want people to run into each other, right? We have over 3,000 square feet of community assets just on the 4th floor co-working space. I mean, the boardroom alone seats 40 people, 40, right? These are assets to allow for those serendipitous collisions. That's when innovation occurs. I need the students running into the senior vice president of Hitachi. That could turn into an internship. That can turn into a job, right? I need the students running into the venture capitalists. That might have just gave an opportunity for the students and their idea to, fund a startup, right? And so when you build an environment to allow that and create programming around it, we're going to have an entire back-end social enterprise platform powering the whole campus, showing events, maybe wishing you a happy birthday today, things of that nature. Maybe Mike's team just closed a Series A. You're going to be informed every day of what's happening amongst every team, because we'll have about 600 to 700 people on campus on any given day, right? And so building the environment to allow all of you to interact daily, it's huge. Like, for instance, I explain it this way. Why do we go and invest our money in going to some of your preeminent conference for your industry, right? For ours, it's HIMSS, right? Have anybody ever heard of HIMSS conference? 60,000 people go to that. It was in Orlando in January. Why do I go and spend all that money to be there? To meet fellow thought leaders, learn, network, etc. Imagine that happening every single day at Catalyst, right? Global thought leaders in healthcare interacting every single day. It's powerful.
That's great. Anybody have any questions? I don't want to take it too much.
Is the innovation equal across the board, or are you seeing more emphasis in hardware, software, analytics?
It's all across the board. I mean, you're seeing blockchain really start to blossom here. A company like Burst IQ, check them out at burstiq.com. Blockchain's really starting to take off. Predictive analytics, wearable tech, IoT's real big now because Aero Electronics is here locally, their headquarters. Chatbots, that's really getting big. Text messaging type chatbots in our industry is getting real big. Artificial intelligence, you already know that, natural language processing. So those are kind of the themes that we're seeing in our community at large.
Great. So I'm curious. You're such a thought leader in the industry and really been a powerhouse in moving things forward. And it's such a great story. But to humanize it a little bit, how do you navigate your biggest flaw? I mean, students in the audience or across this campus can often be intimidated by such lofty goals. But can we humanize that in any way?
Yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with shooting for the stars, right? Go big. Why not? We only get one chance at this, right? But once you do go big, then you have to distill it literally down to the daily, right? This is a $65 million project, right? It's enormous. Never been done before, right? It's daunting. If I stopped at the first 1,000 no's that I received on this thing, because I started this back in beginning of 14, if I had stopped on the first 1,000 no's, we wouldn't be here today, right? You have to be relentless. You have to find something that rips you out of bed, not for the money, but for the passion behind it, because you want to find something that's going to literally impact and change the world, right? So I'm not waking up every morning to see how many zeros I can throw in my bank account. I'll be completely honest with you. I get ripped out of bed at about 3:30, 4 o'clock every morning because I'm hell bent on flipping this industry upside down. It's bankrupting our nation. I mean, you can see it right now. I can't hide it. I'm pissed off, and we're gonna flip the game on this industry. I don't give a shit what's happening on Capitol Hill. It's gonna take all of us, not those clowns on Capitol Hill that are bankrupting this country, right? Yeah. It's up to us, and so that's what rips me out of bed every day. And so you can have a lofty goal, mine's Catalyst, but then every single day you have to do something to move the ball forward. And once you start doing that, you start putting a foot in front of the other, eventually you'll get to the finish line. By the time I launch the idea of Catalyst, and when we open the doors, it will be over 4 years. 4 years, right? Think about that. So, but you have to find something that you truly and utterly believe in. I mean, I have 2 degrees from Stanford and I was driving Lyft, right? Because I just didn't give a shit, right? I knew that I have to keep my lights on. What's that?
That doesn't sound so bad. It sounds kind of fun.
No, but I mean, I needed some way to keep food on my plate, right? I mean, this thing ain't producing revenue until next year, right? So I figure it out, right? Figure it out. I have no shame because I know the larger prize ahead is building a campus for this community and for this industry across the country. That's what keeps me motivated, and I'll do whatever it takes, right? I'll do whatever it takes, right? You can't take no for an answer, and you have to find something that rips you out of bed every day. Thank you.
I was thinking, I have a question, it's okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking about, my background is in science, engineering, chemistry, and maybe you learned this in business school, but typically in the science world, we apply for money, we get money, and then we do projects, we collaborate together. sometimes we collaborate in order to increase our success for getting money. But then if you don't have money, it's an easy, clean break. You just don't have the money. And then whoever applies for a patent gets the patent. And so I wondered, like, in the business world, though, it seems like there's this other element to all this. You form a team in an ever-evolving, like you have a startup, and then you have to evolve. You have to constantly pivot and evolve. And then who you started with isn't necessarily who's needed.
It's true.
So and one thing I'm confused about, and maybe you learned this in business school, I don't know, is how to make, like I don't believe you truly ever break up with someone, but there seems like there's a legal and a financial responsibility as you move forward to people that had time in it. So I feel like a lot of researchers, if they're interested in that, don't know, because we know how the clean break is in the science world. It's very crisp. But it seems like things can be muddly. I mean, this whole Facebook thing, but it seems like it can, how do you protect your company? Is there a class on that?
Yeah, I'm imagining there is at your business school, but things like vesting schedules, agreements in regards to equity positions and things like that. Yeah, there's a whole.
So it's like all of the shareholders.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
And some great resources that we have on campus are some of our entrepreneurship and venture management classes. We have an entrepreneurship minor now, which is really picking up speed.
That's cool.
And we're doing lots of things to propel that to even higher places. So something to kind of piggyback on an aspect of his question is, you talk about being able to build these teams and bring people together. What do you look for when you're building these teams, especially with kind of respect for students who are assembling their own teams and building their own startups right here on campus and in this very room?
Yeah. Trust. I mean, you gotta find people that you'll go to war with every single day. This startup life is not easy, and I'll even say that as well. Startup world is not for everybody. I say that every single time. I don't want you guys to walk away thinking that I'm telling everybody, oh, the startup life is the best, right? Everybody's gonna be Mark Zuckerberg. Bullshit. It's bullshit, right? It is very, very hard. It rips families apart. Entrepreneurs have the highest rate of suicide. One of the highest rates of suicide in our nation. That's a reality. Do not take it lightly, launching a startup. It ruins families, right? I'm very lucky that I have an incredible spouse that supports me through this journey. It can turn your life upside down. You can go into the depths of depression like you've never seen, right? And so I just share those realities because it's part of the nature of this world. But when you're forming a team, you got to find somebody you deeply trust, that you know is equally going to rip themselves out of bed at 4 in the morning, that is going to be there no matter what through thick and thin, and recognizes the larger play of the startup and the goals as a team, right? Teams are very important. Played college football and a little bit of the NFL. Teams, to me, that's where I gain my success in life, right? And so, what do they always say? Go alone, you'll go faster. Go together, you'll go further. I firmly believe in that. So, does that resonate in regards to teams and, more importantly, the world of entrepreneurship? How many are entrepreneurs in here? Startups? It's hard, huh? What do you think?
It's definitely the most difficult thing I've ever undertaken. Yeah,
It's tough, isn't it?
it's a struggle.
Anybody else got feedback on launching their startup?
It's fun.
It is fun. Absolutely, it can be. It is. It is. And be ready for it too. We'll get you in just 1 second. I want to finish this. Prepare yourself for it, right? When I launched my startup, MedPassage, in beginning of 2012, I literally prepared for that moment for over 2 years. Paid down all kinds of debts and all that stuff. Making sure that my bank account's ready for that, because there was no salary for over a year and a half, right? Prepare yourself before you jump off the cliff, but you're still going to build the parachute on the way down regardless. So, what were you going to mention?
I think I wanted to speak more about the passion and the relationship
Sure.
piece, if that's okay, to transition
Yeah.
that. I'm an EMB student.
You're a what?
I'm an EMBA student
Okay.
at the school, so I've been working, I'm an older lady, so I've kind of gone through it all. I worked in healthcare for 13 years, specifically in HIV and AIDS, and I developed a model for people who didn't have access to healthcare and were living with HIV, and it's still out there and it's still succeeding, but I can really relate to what you're saying about passion and not making money and really struggling, and I really appreciate that. I think the thing about what you're trying to do in terms of bringing people together, I think that's the key to to where we go in the future. And I agree that the students are our future,
Absolutely.
the younger generation. And I'm coming back like this fellow saying, how can I learn more about a business world? Because I came through healthcare and through government and through nonprofit, where it wasn't about making money or doing the most effective and efficient thing. It was more about how do you serve people who have nothing else. So I think sometimes the grass is always greener on the other side, and my comment is more about relationships. Like what I've learned with BU and the program that I'm in is that it's all about your relationships. It's all about your network. If you couldn't articulate your vision and how you were going to get there, nobody would buy on. But it's also about that relationship building, and I think that's something we lose along the way. I guess it's more of a comment, but it's a question too. Like, how important have your relationships been to you?
That's the reason why we're here today, right? That's the reason why this campus is out of the ground. You know, when you go, like for instance, Kerry Sims, I'll pick on him. Kerry Sims is a senior vice president at Hitachi, right? Hitachi is one of the biggest organizations on the face of the planet. What do you think comes with that? A very risk-averse nature. And I'm asking Hitachi to join a campus that's never been done before. How hard do you think it was for him to sell to the North American CEO? Right. He so deeply trusts me that he's like, I'm going to take this to the CEO of all of North America, and I'm not going to let off the gas until we get a yes. Right? Now Hitachi has invested huge into our community here in Denver. Why? Because they want to compete. They will not want to. They are competing with the Microsofts, the Googles, and the Apples of the world for healthcare innovation. And they have an incredible backbone behind it. Over 9,000 different subsidiaries, 350,000 employees. Incredible, their technological backbone. They're just terrible marketers. They'll even say it. The Japanese are horrendous at marketing. They want to change that and be a part of this community to show that they're here to help change healthcare. But if you think about it from Kerry's perspective and to your point about relationships, this guy had to go to the North American CEO and say, I want you guys to invest in something that's never been done before. It's tough. That's a tough order. But because I worked my ass off for years to build that deep level of trust and say, Kerry, you take that to the CEO, I'm not going to let you down. You have to invest in your community. You have to invest in your relationships. You can ask Nina and everybody else in this room. I am non-stop meeting with people. Non-stop. All the time. You have to. Because you have to build that trust, especially if you want to be a community leader. You have to build that trust amongst everybody in that community. It's a lot of work, but it's well worth it.
So you talking about Hitachi made me think of this. A lot of startups want to be the technology platform rather than identifying with a certain industry. How does one make the switch when they decide, oh, I want to be technology in healthcare versus just a technology platform?
Has anybody done that? Actually, let's see if anybody in the audience has done that. Started building a technology and then transitioned it to healthcare. Anyone? No? That's a great.
Looking at that.
What's that?
Looking at that, but there's a lot of industry forces that you have to overcome.
Oh, absolutely. It's complex, right? Yeah, I don't know. You know, I haven't built technology for a number of years now. I'm somehow a real estate guy now, so I'm not the best one to answer that. But yeah, it's tough. You have to know if you're gonna take your technology and place it into healthcare, you better be highly educated. There are competing forces in this industry. You know, it's not just a buy-sell like a consumer type of play. You got insurance providers. You got or insurance payers, hospital providers, right? I mean, it's just an absolute complex industry. You have to know it inside and out if you want to be successful. But the opportunity is huge if you can crack the nut. So I don't know if I answered that. I don't know how to best answer that question. So.
You talked about all the kind of the first 1,000 no's you received. I'd be interested to hear about some of the kind of the challenges and hurdles that you ran into as building Catalyst throughout the process and kind of ways that you overcame them, and maybe it ties in with the collaboration that we've talked about.
How much time do you have? Golly. There's so many. I mean, this journey, it's been the hardest thing I've ever done. You know, earning a full ride scholarship to play football at Stanford was easy compared to this. It was. But that's okay. I took it on, right? This industry is reticent to change, right? I mean, there's some people making a tremendous amount of money and don't want this industry to change. But I'm not going to let off the gas. There's an ivory tower that needs to be knocked down, and I'm trying to amass an army around the world to knock that son of a bitch down because it's bankrupting our country. And so I can't even count the number of no's and all the challenges. I mean, it's just nonstop. right? And any startup's like that, right? But you have to be convicted in what you're doing. You have to rip yourself out of bed every single day, no matter the challenge, if you truly believe in it. I mean, everything from, losing a parcel of land that we thought we were going to build on, having to reassign it while in mid-flight, keeping the community together, from, having a team that was going to take a 40,000 square foot, 15-year lease, move here from another city, had the governor on the hook for tax incentives, that blew up. Got to keep going, right? So, I mean, I could go, we'll go grab a beer and talk about that later, all right? So, that'll be a long evening. Anybody else?
So I'd like to kind of circle back around to the relationships that we were discussing, and specifically for students. A lot of advice that we get from distinguished community members such as yourself is just go out there, just put yourself out there, and just be in these meetups, these communities, and just exist there. Is that just it, or do you have any advice beyond that?
You guys want to know what the secret sauce is? I came here in 2008. You want to know how many people I knew? 0. I grew up Reno Lake Tahoe area, so close to the mountains. I'm a mountain boy, right? Love the mountains. Said I want to find the biggest city for where the mountains are, right? So came and visited Denver in 2007. Fell in love with the place. Moved here in February of 2008. Didn't know anybody. But to your question, just go out and hustle everyone. I went and met with anyone and everybody to learn, and that's the secret sauce. When you go and meet somebody, ask about them. It's human DNA. What do people like to talk about? Themselves, right? Ask those questions. Learn from leaders in the community. Ask how you can be a servant leader to them. What can I help you with? Can I shadow you, right? Hey, Kent Thury, CEO of DaVita, can I come work with you for a day? All I can say is no, right? You'll be amazed at how many will say yes, right? Be a servant leader. Ask questions. Another thing that I found, in building this brand that I have now around the globe, is the following. This is one of my secret weapons. The best way to promote yourself is to promote others. Does that make sense? The best way to promote yourself is to promote others. If you go to mikebiselli.com/blog, you will see that in full effect. I'm always writing about others. I'm always tweeting about others, posting on LinkedIn about others. That's what it's all about, being a servant leader. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great. That's great feedback.
Awesome.
It's tried and true.
If anybody has any questions? Otherwise, I know that there's some student startups in the audience
Nice.
and across campus too that are really interested in your expertise on community building, ecosystem building, especially as it pertains to kind of building a community around their company or product. And I know that's not the same as necessarily as an industry integrator, but I was wondering if you could touch on that.
Yeah, has anybody ever heard the book Content Inc.? Anybody? Raise your hands. Content Inc. Pick it up if you're to focus in on your question there. Pick that book up, and what they talk about is go and build a community first, right? Again, best way to promote yourself is promote others. Go and build a community first, and then drop your product into that community. That's when brands just take off. Now another key to that is patience is genius. That doesn't happen overnight, does it? Right? It takes a while to build that community. I've been building this community since 2011, and we're just getting going, right? It's a long time. So patience is genius, and then go and build a community of whatever that might be, and then down the way, that's when you drop your product in. Does that make sense? Yeah. Does that not make sense? Anybody challenge that? The life of the startup, everybody thinks that, oh my God, we just raised $5 million and we're going to turn into LinkedIn any moment here. It doesn't work like that. Patience is genius. You're going to pivot. You're going to change course mid-flight, right? That's the beauty and the nature of the startup world. Embrace it. Understand that it's chaotic, and what you started out with may be completely different from once you find that, what we call the vein. Once you hit that vein and really take off, that might be years later, and it may look something completely different than what you first started out with. Does that make sense? Has anybody had a pivot yet? Anybody have a pivot yet?
Yeah, we have many times.
Good. How long have you been around?
5 months.
Good. Yeah, see, in 5 months, less than half a year, they've already pivoted a bit. That's good. Absolutely.
What do they call it? Like, it's a good opportunity for customer interview. Like, when do you not learn from a
Right.
interview, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, persona interviews are huge. Absolutely.
Josh.
So your idea is definitely a moonshot. How do you, like you've also mentioned a lot about the lean startup iterative process. How do you integrated that into the moonshot sort of business model?
With Catalyst, again, going back, persona interviews, right? So when I first started out on this, I'm like thinking, I started seeing these trends where these large corporates, these huge beasts are getting swallowed by these young and nimble startups. Uber, Airbnb, right? You start seeing these themes across the world. And then, you got to read it. How many know about Steve Case's book, Third Wave? You got to read that book. Absolutely, you have to read that book. It's everything about where we're going in regards to partnerships and collaboration. And I started noticing that back in 2013 and 14 that these large beasts, Hitachi, they can't move like somebody's startup, right? And they better start closely coupling with each other, or else they could be taken out, like an Airbnb. Did you know Airbnb amassed more rooms in 4 years than it took Hilton 85? Those are realities, right? And so I said, well, imagine, as opposed to just fighting that, what if we got together and embraced it? What if we took a Hitachi and put it in the same environment of all these nimble startups? There could be an acquisition of that startup, investment in that startup, learnings from that startup and vice versa. And so that's where then I started going to interviews, asking the vice presidents at the Hitachis, the American Diabetes Association, Kaiser. Kaiser's powering our clinic on the campus, where the physician, the entrepreneur, and most importantly, the patient will be working to get together on the campus in real time delivering care, right? People thought I was nuts. No way a health system would sign off on that, Mike. That's too radical. That's too bleeding edge. Bullshit, because what we've been doing for the past 30 years, bankrupting our country, right? We have to try something new. But then I was like, that sounds good from my perspective. Do the executives at Kaiser agree to that?
Yeah.
They did.
They did.
Yeah, they signed off, and yeah, absolutely, they signed off, and
Well, they're
they just
an
built.
insurance company mostly.
Well, no, they have the physician groups that are powering the insurance, but they're opening a clinic on the campus, right? No other health system would believe me. They signed off on it. Then all of a sudden, all these other health systems started calling. Why didn't you tell us, Mike? I said, I've been telling you for 2 years. You just aren't picking up my phone, right? But I asked Kaiser executives that were dear friends, and it goes back to relationship building, right? I worked my ass off for years to build those trusted relationships with Roland Lyon, the president of Kaiser, Brent Bowman, senior vice president, chief of staff at Kaiser. And when I had that idea to deliver care on the campus, I asked them those persona interviews, right? Questions. And it resonated. And then a year and a half, 2 years later, they signed a long-term lease to do exactly what I described, right? So to your point, may it be a moonshot? Absolutely. But again, take it step fashion, right? In order to get to the moon, you got to do it one step at a time.
Great. So you've mentioned Content Inc. and The Third Wave.
Yep.
2 books that you highly recommend to our audience. And so that's got me curious. For a student entrepreneur, someone who's just putting themselves out there, what's your recommendation for a good read?
Well, those 2. An old one that some people don't like, but I do. Guy Kawasaki's Art of the Start. Another great book. Really good book there. God, what else? Yeah, that Third Wave book. Check it out. It's unbelievable. It's a great book. I should think of others. I'll think of some others while we're going through this.
So we've talked a lot about the challenges with Catalyst HTI and getting that off the ground. I was curious if you had any kind of concrete examples or stories that you could walk us through to give students a real, a little bit more of an intimate perspective of what facing a challenge like that is really like.
Let me think. Oh, perfect example. So this is before I was nominated to the board of MGMA. You can find more out at mgma.com. So this organization is 90 years old, right? And as everybody knows, healthcare is just being flipped upside down. And Dr. Haley Fisher-Wright was named the new CEO at MGMA. She's now 2 or 3 years in a row now, one of the top 100 minds in healthcare on that list, are people like President Obama and others. And Todd Evenson, the then and still COO was interacting with Prime Health, right? So he's at our Prime Health digital health summits and our challenges, and I became good friends with him, right? Again, building that relationship. And finally, when I hatched this Catalyst idea, I said, Todd, let me come in and pitch this to your new CEO. And he goes, absolutely, I think she's going to really like this, right? So I go in and pitch the vision and all of that. And she goes, yeah, this sounds like a really good idea, right? We're 90 years old, and we're old and stodgy, and we represent all these physicians, and an association in its current form, associations are going to die, right? The younger generations, it's not like it used to be, right? We don't need a publication. We don't need a quarterly newsletter, right? Those things are not realities anymore for associations. So she saw this as an opportunity to get ready for the next 90 years, being part of an innovation space like MGM or like a Catalyst. So I gave her the presentation, give her and Todd all the collateral they need, and they head into the board meeting. Now remember, the board meeting, this is the old board before I joined. The old board, they didn't think about innovation like a lot of us do on a daily basis, right? And holy cow, man, they were just pushing back. No, this doesn't make sense. We don't get it, right? And they were in, again, relationships. I kept empowering Todd and Haley. I mean, I even remember getting phone calls on a Friday night at 11 p.m. from the CEO saying, how do we get ready for the Monday morning call with the board? I'm working through the weekend with them. They were so bought in on this vision. And they would not take a no from their board. And they finally got it approved. And they signed a very long-term lease for a 6,000 square foot innovation lab. So any of those 400,000+ physicians we represent across the country can fly into Denver at any point and work with the ListenMDs of the world, work with our 140+ digital health startups. So while that was very challenging, persistence, tenacity, and not taking no for an answer won out. So
great.
Yeah.
Remy?
I had to write my question down. So how eloquently asked this, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on specifically the aging population, because Denver's 5th in the country for our fastest growing aging population, and we're 1st in the country for millennials. And so where I come in is figuring out creative ways to make those connection points between the two generations, and specifically with my ideas that I've been working on, it's how we rethink space to reintegrate those elders.
Yep.
And so I'm just thinking that when I think of catalyzing in the Rhino district and the space around it, to put, for instance, senior living, so that you have access to these seniors who are going to be, major people that you're trying to cater to with these technologies. But what I want to know is, has there been discussion around those connection points, and is there a way that you can physically integrate them? Because I know I conduct interviews with our alumni who are over 75, and they have lists of needs that startups can address, basically. So
Yeah. So to your question, so let me back up before I answer it. So we will be opening this campus in 1 year, May of 18, right? I found out recently they just don't pop up out of the ground. I'm like, let's get this thing open, let's go, right? Just didn't pop up out of the ground. So anyway, we'll be opening in about a year. So right now what we're really focused on are two things: building the building and leasing it up, right? Making sure it's full with innovators and folks that want to change healthcare together, right? To your point, what we'll start doing, the programming or the software of the build. So we're building the hardware right now, and the software, to your question, we'll start working on that a little bit later this year. But we're going to turn to the community, you and others, to help us with that programming. Remember what I said, we have a 250-person auditorium on the ground floor. Imagine if, and there's a senior care living big, well, I don't know if it's right next door, but there's another one right by, you know where REI is downtown? By the river. There's a huge complex right by there on the other side of the river. Yes, right? What if we get a couple buses loaded with those community members, bring them over to Catalyst, and allow our community and our innovators and our students to do those persona interviews, right? And vice versa.
And that's what needs.
Absolutely,
That's what needs to be done.
100%. 100%. We can't build these technologies in a vacuum, right? That's one thing I get very, very passionate about. We have brilliant minds coming into healthcare. Don't go and build your technology in a vacuum. Get an MD next to you. Get an administrator next to you.
Figure out what they need.
Shocking. Get a patient next to you, right? So yeah, we're going to be doing that. We'll be programming that more a little bit later this year.
Great.
And maybe you'll be helping with that.
I would love to.
Awesome.
That's what I want to do.
Excellent.
Fantastic. Do we have any other questions from the audience?
Any challenges on what I said? Don't be shy. We all want to learn here. Challenge anything that I said. If it doesn't call bullshit on me. Anything that didn't make sense.
So, you said you're like now kind of a real estate guy because that's kind of the role you've been playing. I feel like Rhino has gone through so many different changes
Sure has.
in the past couple of years. Even like I'm in the art world, and people even say that the art district there is kind of dying just because it's changing so frequently.
Yep.
What is your view for Rhino in the next 5 years?
That we're going to absolutely inject art wherever we can in that district. Matter of fact, I'm taking the bull by the horns. I'm opening up 3 artist lofts in total of 1,500 square feet, so artists like you can be a part of our community. Why? It's therapy, right? We bring those patients onto campus and they can work with an artist like you. That's therapy. I'm going to have an entire artist wall for graffiti, right? We're going to inject that. We're going to have pieces of artwork installed on the sidewalk right outside the campus, right? So because you're 100%, the 100% correct, that is a district that was built by the artists years and years ago. And you know, some people feel that people like me are pushing them out. Well, at the end of the day, and I'll just call a spade, cities are living and breathing ecosystems. They're always changing, they're always in ebbing and flowing. And so when I hear people say, oh, you're pushing all of us out, that's just the natural progress of any city in history. That's just how cities evolve, right? And so it's not like we're out there doing this vindictively, right? But what I am trying to do is be proactive to knock that down a little bit and have our artists a part of the community so they can interact with those patients, so they can interact with our entrepreneurs. Art's a big part of this project. So.
I am a student. I can ask a question.
Yes, you can. Even if you weren't, you can ask a question. You're Nina.
Well, I wouldn't, but I'm doing this in my student thing. How much, if any, I mean, we're in Colorado, right?
Yes,
One
we
of
are.
the big reasons we're here is because of those lovely mountains over there.
A little backyard of ours.
How much, if at all, are you integrating outdoor recreation into what you're doing there, or companies that are working in that space into the health tech space? Because there's not necessarily a natural overlap, but they have to be.
Oh no, there absolutely is, right?
Yeah,
mental, spiritual, you know, kind of wellness, absolutely. So kitty corner. So again, everybody knows where Great Divide is. Right behind Great Divide, it's already approved. There's going to be a brand new city park, Rhino Park, right there, which is kitty corner to our campus. We're already, one of my team members is already getting proactive to work with the city to drape Wi-Fi, Catalyst Wi-Fi over the whole park. So any tenant can go out there and work in the park as well. And we're right against the Platte River. I don't know how many know Jeff Shoemaker and the Greenway Foundation. You probably know him through Eric, yeah. So, they do great work, right? They're building it what they're calling the promenade in Rhino. Think of contextually very similar to, you know where the whitewater rafting park is behind REI? Yeah. Kind of think of that in River North. That's right by the park, right? So we're going to be, what I want to do is I want leaders, I want maybe the senior vice president of Hitachi and you to go for a walk along the river. Build community, right? Get out from behind of your laptop. You know, go outside, walk, learn about Carrie, and Carrie learn about you, right? So yeah, we are going to inject that. I'd also like to see some field trips where we go on a summit or go up into the mountains for a day or two and really dig in and get away from it all down here and go and enjoy our natural resources. Absolutely.
Going back to I think what you started with, which was what defines Colorado, it's a collaboration community, but it also has to be intentional. People have to commit to this.
Absolutely.
All these stakeholders, your government, your NGOs, private industry. I mean, I recognize building a space is about a community as well, but you've got to get people out of their silos.
Yep.
You know, and get even to get people to invest into Colorado, into the idea here. You can get big companies to come in. I'm just wondering how much is intentional and purposeful in the beginning in terms of identifying who that is and to get them in, but or how much is it build it and they will come, in your model going forward?
A little bit of both. You need some of those big deals to de-risk the finances behind a project like that, right? So you need some long-term leases. That's why, I wasn't just going to go and build a co-working space, and no offense to any startups, because I was a startup as well. You don't have a historical balance sheet, right? You don't have, like if I take a 10-year, 15-year lease signed by a Hitachi to a bank, that de-risks the investment from the bank, right? And so to your point, a little bit intentional on the front end to de-risk the project, and then of course build it, they'll come as well. We're watching all these people. Go look at the public roster on Catalyst's website. There are some nationally leading names on there, right? And when you start sharing that story over and over again, mass begets mass, right? And that's what I'm now seeing. At first it was very hard, but I'm now starting to see, hey, proof's in the pudding. Go and study it yourself. It's happening. And so now it's snowballing, and it has now become bigger than Mike Biselli. Does that make sense? It's bigger than all of us, right?
So
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'll do a follow-up.
Yeah.
Is the notion, I mean, of the collisions, again, it sounds like you're very much a hard worker, and you want to help people.
Yeah, you want to out hustle Mike Biselli. That's one thing. It's hard work.
Yeah, but there are a lot of people that would, so how do you define, again, strategically what Mike Biselli can do versus, okay, I'm going to refer you to somebody else, come back to me when, this is complicated in terms of getting strategically your initial partners involved. You haven't opened a space,
right?
I mean, there's been all this time. Have you been you mentioned the Prime Health and the Denver South.
I'm already watching the tenants that have signed up for Catalyst launching huge partnerships. Some of them will be made public here very soon that will literally be heard around the nation. Why? Again, it goes back to human DNA. When you become part of a community, when you become part of a family, it's amazing what you'll start doing, right? So when I have like MGMA and the American Diabetes Association now part of the same project, wait until you see we're going to announce some of the things in the future, right? Does that make sense? So I'm already seeing the byproduct of this campus, and we're still a year out from even opening it. I can't wait to see what's going to happen on the daily. And again, it's not for me to dictate or to prescribe what is and isn't going to happen. I just want to build a community that empowers everybody to connect, go deeper with each other, and do something bigger than just themselves alone. And what that turns out to be, not for me to answer.
And so we have time for one more question. I'll leave it to Remy, and then we'll kind of start to wrap up our time here.
It's not that good of a last question, but I was just curious, since you've had experience at Galvanize and you know about WeWork too.
Yep.
Would you say Catalyst then is different in the sense that you have those top, 100 companies or Forbes 100 companies in there as well? I'm just curious about the shared space aspect and why Catalyst can be so much more or better for people in there.
Think about, so just with the American Osteopathic Association coming here from Chicago and MGMA, that represents over 500,000 physicians. Tell me where you're going to get that connectivity at just a traditional co-work. And again, I'm not saying that Galvanize or WeWork, I love them, right? Jim Dieters and Lawrence Mendez, the founders of Catalyst, dear friends, they're great. What they're doing across the nation is huge.
I love the concept of shared spaces.
But if we're going to change healthcare, it's not going to be with just startups, right? If our startup needs to connect to those 500,000 physicians, right? Where are you going to get that in just a traditional co-working space? You're not. So that's the difference.
Great. Well, that's fantastic.
I have some goodies before everybody goes.
Yeah.
Good.
And
Cool.
while you're handing out some goodies, if you want to impart any words of wisdom or parting advice on the students in the crowd here, that'd be great.
Work smarter and harder. Right? Here's some information about 10-10-10 coming up. Highly recommend get involved in that. Here is my card for Catalyst, so if you guys want to learn more about that. And then lastly, here is just an overall card of the work that I've been doing kind of globally on a bigger level. Still hustling. Every day.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Follow up with me. Let me know what you guys need. We're here for you.